All right, we are recording. So, I want to thank everyone for coming for today's session. This is a topic that is something of my background as it relates to the idea of leadership and organizations, more specifically leadership studies. When we think about leadership, we think about it in the sense of how do we operate as individuals within a group, but more importantly, it's a process. And I'll introduce it with this simple idea, and it's a quote by Warren Bennis, and he says, "Becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. That simple, that difficult." And if you didn't know, Warren Bennis, major leadership guru, actually used to be university president back in the 1970s. And after his presidency at the University of Cincinnati, he went on to become a major leadership thought leader in management and in the workplace. So think about that idea of leadership and think about how you have developed yourself within as a leader, not only within your classes, but also within your organizations that you affiliate with. I want to open up also with the short video. And what I want for you to think about is how we think about leadership in the context of our signature themes or strengths.
When teams are able to see what they're made of and the strengths that are part of that team really come to the table, they're more cohesive, they're a stronger team, they're connected, and they really can leverage off of each other. And the more that they take a deeper dive into that, it makes them even more powerful at what they're doing. It almost kind of unleashes something that they never thought was possible before.
We have found that it opens up a new language, that you've given people a compass into understanding and a way to sort of point those, individual coaching conversations from leader to employee. And we're seeing a lot of success with that opening on a conversation that wasn't happening anymore.
We partnered strengths with 360s. So the conversation basically says, here's your 360. This is how you're showing up. And we partner strengths with it and say, this is why you're showing up that way. Yeah, I think for the person leaving that room, they're changed. They look at their management style differently. They actually embrace it. I think in the past, the way the conversations went were basically, this is what you're doing wrong, right? And so they're constantly focused on benchmarking and measuring themselves against other managers. But the conversation this year was more more a connection. It's more of this is development, pure development. Managers were able to open up more and express some of the areas that they want to work on. And then they also walked away with a set of confidence, right? A boost of confidence rather, hey, I'm doing really well in these areas and it's because I'm positive or it's because I'm strategic. And they walked away with those aha moments. So we're doing team workshops right now throughout the organization, and the teams range from 3 people to 30 people. And what we're doing is really focusing on team dynamics. We integrate strengths within that.
We've also seen significant improvement in team dynamics. So learning to understand people based on their strengths and their sort of worldview, recognizing undiscovered or previously undiscovered talents and strengths, yearnings and desires that people had to express those strengths with new roles and responsibilities. It's dramatically changed the conversation because now we find that these teams have a shorthand for talking amongst themselves as well as cross-functionally with other teams about what their competencies are, what they're really good at, kind of what's in their swing zone, how other people can leverage them. So there's been lots of anecdotal information as well as some concrete information about organizations doing a better job of meeting their metrics in a timely manner, and just feeling like they're being more successful at those things they're expected to do.
So it really encouraged a spirit of teamwork, regardless of location, because now they saw things in other center leaders that they could leverage where they were weak. or strong or vice versa. So I think it really gave everybody kind of a common language and a common ground to say, oh, I need your help with this because you're strong in communication, or I need your help in this because you're strong in analytic and I'm not. So I think it got them, like I said, to give them the language that enabled communication and collaboration and working together rather than us versus them.
From a team perspective, and one team in particular, the manager moved engagement massively in this 12-month period by simply taking a strengths approach and aligning work within the team to match the people's strengths.
So when you think about our strengths, once again, here are some principles to keep in mind. One, strengths are meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive. Strengths are meant to be used as a way to describe behavior. So it's more so to describe who you are, not to put you into a set of rules or put you in a box. It's meant to be a measurement of your potential and a way for you to focus what you're good at and not what you're weak at, right? Again, imagine what happens if we focused on what we were good at. We would all be far superior than being mediocre and just concentrating on weaknesses, right? When we think about the formation of a strengths-based team, consider it as a way for us to really focus on, again, what we're good at and leverage and utilize the potential that everyone has in bringing all that together. And we'll talk about how that forms in a moment. And then finally, you considering Clifton's strengths as a way within the lens of leadership, within the lens of team building and teamwork, allows us to connect specific behaviors and themes. And in a sense, it gives us an opportunity to see how our behaviors are playing out with each other, but more so how our behaviors are interpreted by others within a specific context or group. Okay. Furthermore, when we think about, again, talent, it's that spontaneous, repetitive, natural, recurring pattern of thought, feeling, behavior, and motivation. We bring that out to a theme. When we think about a theme of common talents. Strength is when a theme is applied, and then we think about now as it relates to an organization, the idea of fit. How does your role and your strengths align with a group that allows you to thrive, allows you to grow, but more importantly, allows you to generate specific fit and connection with people in the organization? Finally, when we think about the idea of Clifton strengths and applying that to a specific group, groups have goals, right? And it's an opportunity for self-discovery and reflection, not only of the team, but also yourself and how you fit with that team. Okay. We often go into the conversation of the idea of leadership and management. And so when we think about the idea of management, it is the mundane task. It's the daily operation. We think about keeping things in a specific order. It's all about the organization, the staffing. Think about the trajectory. Think about the progression of a manager. There's a specific ladder which we climb, and it's prescribed to us, right? Based on the rules and boundaries that we have. When we think about leadership, the idea of leadership is about facilitating change. It's about engaging others in a vision and aligning people not only with the values of the organization, but also aligning people based on the strengths and what they bring to the organization. When we think about the trajectory of progression, trajectory of development, it's not a process where we are prescribing a ladder, but help others identify for themselves which ladder should they be climbing, right? And then finally, it's about knowing and living your values. When we think about the knowing and living the values, going back to a previous conversation, more in particular, last week's conversation as it relates to our codes of ethics, it helps us to not only integrate our values into who we are as professionals, but more importantly, as individuals within a specific community of thought leaders or people in a group. Okay. So I offer to you a specific definition of leadership. And now there's many different definitions out there, But when we think about leadership, it is considered, partly a process, right? So when we think about leadership, a leader is not necessarily a person who holds a formal position or who is perceived as others by leaders, right? Okay. So a leader is one who is able to affect positive change for the betterment of others, the community, and society. Okay. So in a sense, everyone is a leader in this in an organization. Okay. Yes, from a managerial perspective, there are titles, there's hierarchy, and so forth. But at the same time, also when we think about the organization as a whole, everyone is considered a leader. Right? When we think about leadership as a process, leadership cannot be described simply in terms of the behavior of an individual. Rather, it involves collaborative relationships that lead to collective action grounded in shared values of people who work together to affect positive change. So take a look at this for a moment. Okay. When we think about the leadership as a process, there are several key words to keep in mind. From an engineering perspective, here's some terms to sort of create a formula with. When we think about the idea of leadership, right? It involves relationships, right? You're moving an organization. That organization involves people, right? When we think about collective action, that action is grounded in the shared values of the organization, the sense of purpose, the task at hand, right? But more importantly, how do we as an organization affect positive change? How do we bring about positive change? So when you think about that idea of these terms, leadership, relationships, action, shared values, positive change, when we think about those ideas in the form of a formula, okay, you think about it like this. Leadership equals relationship plus action plus shared values, movement to positive change. Okay. So the question becomes, as an organization, or more importantly, as leaders, how do we use our strengths within organizations? Okay. So at this point, I typically introduce to groups this idea of domain. When we think about our signature themes, when we think about their Clifton strengths, they can be grouped in specific domains, if you will. And so here's a short video that sort of explains those domains.
It's important to realize that those 34 themes are built on more than 70 years of interviews, of research, of observation into what goes right when people succeed. We also have a way to simplify these 34 into 4 different domains, and that comes from supplemental research about how do leaders lead. So your strengths domains essentially answer the question, how do I make sense of the world on a greater scale than just my individual themes? There are 4 of them: executing, strategic thinking, relationship building, and influencing.
When leaders look at those domains and fill in a team strengths grid, and they start understanding where are we as a team, what is our strongest domain, that tells us something about how the team works together. And again, I think it just amplifies where do we go first? What is our default when we have a project? Now, what we found is that what predicts the success of the team is not being balanced in all 4 domains, but knowing your strengths. So if a team knows who they are, how they get things done, that is a far bigger predictor of success than having balance in all 4 domains.
So I'm going to leave it here for a moment so that way you can think about those 4 domains. Now, this is also the opportunity for you to think about your top 5. Okay? So think about your top 5 and let me help you understand where they all fall. Right? So the first one, as mentioned earlier, is the executing theme. Okay? Once again, the executing theme is about knowing how to make things happen. Okay? That's the key phrase, knowing how to make things happen. And this theme answers the question of how do I make things into reality, right? The executing theme is the one that are as best describes the individuals in this dominant theme as people who work tirelessly to accomplish the goal. Okay, these nine themes that you see here are the hardest working of the bunch. They tend to get things done with speed, precision, and accuracy. They put the hard work now, so when it's time to move, they're ready. Okay. Putting ideas into action is the strength for this domain. Okay, so if a majority of your themes fall into executing domain, you are you're pretty much an executor. Okay. When we think about the next theme or next domain, right, and the idea of influencing, right, this theme answers the question: how do I influence others? Right? How they may help you take charge, they may speak up, they may make sure things are heard. Right? When teams need to sell the idea inside and outside an organization, they'll turn to these people with this dominant theme, with this dominant domain, to convince others. Okay. These 8 themes enable individuals or groups to sell big ideas. They are able to take charge, speak up, and be heard. They're extremely helpful when you need to reach to a broader audience, meet a bigger goal. They can make it happen both internally within the team or externally among their constituents. Okay, they are as the domain says, they influence how to move forward. Okay, when we think about the types of people in these organizations, when we think about a product launch, an influence a person with high influence domain influence a person in high influencing domain tend to be your great sellers, right? Or the ones that pitch the idea, right? The next one is that of relationship building. Okay, these themes here answer the question: how do I build and nurture strong relationships? They help you hold a team together. Okay, when you think about the glue of the organization, people within that possess themes in the relationship building domain, are the ones that pretty much keep the group together. I think the other thing is they look at how individuals fit into larger pictures, and they could create pathways for people to thrive. They make strong personal relationships and connections that bind a group together around a cause, an idea, or each other. So in another sense, you have the influencers that are selling you the idea. You have the relationship builders who then keep you grounded, keep you connected with the organization. Okay. And then finally, when we think about our signature theme domains, the last one being strategic thinking, it is that question of how do you absorb, think about, and analyze the information and situation. They may help you make better decisions and create better outcomes. When teams need to focus on what could be, they could turn to strategic thinkers to stretch the team's thinking moving forward, being futuristic. Okay. When a plan needs to be done or a new idea created for solving a problem, the folks with these 8 themes can help accomplish that. Whether it's thinking into a current problem or dreaming about how to overcome tomorrow, the strategic thinkers can make a thought or idea or look, they can make it better moving forward. Okay. So when we think about your signature themes, your top 5, okay, where do your top 5 fall? Could it be that a majority of them are in your executing theme, or could a majority of them be in your influencing theme? And I'm talking about 3 or more. Okay. If you have an instance where you have one in each one, at some point, 2 of the themes are going to have 2 or more. Okay, so that's fine. Or you may have a 2, 2, and 1 scenario where you have, as an example, you have an equal number of themes in the influencing and relationship building domain, and then 1 in executing. Okay, as an example, that's fine. You have balance more than anything, but pick one that you feel more naturally drawn to. Okay. So when we think about our themes, now again, I'll leave this here for you to look at. Again, identify what is your most dominant domain. Again, where the one domain where a majority of your top 5 fall. Okay, and again, if there's balance, pick one. Right. So I want you to answer these questions. First, which domain is dominant for you? Write that down. Next, which domain is least dominant for you? Okay, so we're drawing a comparison, right? At the same time, also we're also creating baseline and ceiling, right? Now think back to your last co-op job or your last work experience with a group. Okay. Think about the dominant theme for you. Are your coworkers or peers aware of your strengths and domain and your talents and strengths in the domain that you're most dominant in? So if you, if you were if your dominant theme or your dominant domain is in the executing domain, did your coworkers or peers notice that? Did they make comment on that? Did they compliment you on you exhibiting behavior that fell within that domain? And then the final question is, have you been blind to any of your lesser domains? So let's say, for example, you had your dominant domain is that of strategic thinking, and your lesser domain is that of influencing. Okay. Have you been blind to any of the behaviors based on the signature themes within the influencing domain? You may have some of those signature themes, maybe from 6 to 34, but this is now a sense of awareness, right? In terms of, have you been cognizant of any of the lesser themes, or more importantly, are you aware of any of the behaviors associated with the domain that is considered a lesser domain for you? Okay. Now, as we bring this all together in the idea of groups, right? When we think about the idea where you take your top 5 strengths and you put it all out on the table for everybody to see, there is a way of doing that, and that is a team strengths grid. So this is an example grid here of a manager and 8 subordinates. Okay, and so in this grid, you'll notice that the manager has her top 10, and she has the top 5 for all her subordinates. Okay, and so you'll notice that this team has a lot has a lot of strengths in the relationship building area. Okay, and shaded in blue. Okay, you'll notice that not only by the number of top ranks, the number of number ones, right? So, like for example, Heidi in the top subordinate ranked empathy as number 1. Dion ranked includer as number 1. Abby ranked relator as number 1, and then Anne ranked empathy as number 1 as well. So a lot of number 1s in the relationship building domain. So one of the things to consider is not only the number of number 1s within a specific domain, but the number of number 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. Okay. And as a manager, right, how do your strengths align with that of your group? As you can see in this example, the manager has relator as number 1, and everyone else has number 1. About 4 out of the 8 have a theme that is the top theme in the relationship category. Okay? So something to keep in mind. So think about this as it relates not only to your organizations, But, and I'll put it up there for folks, as it relates to your senior group, your senior capstone groups, your senior design groups, okay? When we think about the strengths of individuals, you know, how to apply, okay? When we think about you as an individual, we think about what you offer to an organization, right? And so here are some questions to keep in mind. One, fill in the blank. You get the best of me when, okay? Think about this in the context of your strengths, right? You get the best. Your best comes out when this happens, or your best comes out based on a specific theme, right? You get the worst of me when, and this could be based on time. This could be based on time of the year. This could also be based on the amount of stress that you have, which is also related to your strengths. Okay. You can count on me to do what? What is it that you can be counted on, right? Or said differently, within an organization, I am your blank person, right? When I think about the senior design process, you are going to be working in groups. You may say, I am your data person. I am your marketing person. Okay. But is that role or is that task based on your strengths? So going back to that idea, I'm your data person. Is it because you like to involve yourself in the data? Is it because when you think about the idea of strategic thinking, you think about ideas, or when you think about different data and sources of data, that you're able to combine all that together? Okay, something to keep in mind. And finally, this is what you could tell your organizations or your team members. This is what I need from you. So it's not about, and let me stress that when you say that this is what you need from others within an organization, this is entirely natural, okay? When we say that we need something from our organization, we need someone to hold me accountable. We need someone to communicate with me when, and so forth. And so when we think about that phrase in particular, we think about, how do we get the best of each other? Okay. And what is needed to get the best out of each other? Right? Thoughts, questions? And I'll put the domains up here for you to take a look, one last look, and I'll post this on the Canvas site. Well, seeing none in the chat or hearing none, thank you all for coming. And I will post this on Canvas when it becomes available, after the video is rendered. Thank you all.